How's it going?
Hello.
All right, so first question.
Yes.
How can one be adventurous with their character while still remaining in the writer's vision?
I think the most important thing with regarding that is getting some clarity on not only what's happening in the scene by asking this question to yourself, okay, what's happening in the scene literally, and being able to get some clarity of the sort of the path of the story in that scene. And then once you answer that question, then you ask yourself this question, which is, what is the point of the scene? Why did the author put this scene in the script? Because if you have clarity on the sort of the message of that scene, then you sort of feel like you have a foundation to kind of build tentacles off of, if you will, to kind of stretch from. Because you know, now you have kind of okay, so I know what the point of the scene is now. So, like, let's say there's a scene between a man and a woman, and they're getting divorced. And maybe the point of the scene is to show that their marriage is in bad shape. So if I'm playing the husband, that gives me sort of freedoms to sort of go, okay, I know that they're not getting along. So now if I become too emotional, if I want to like scream, if I want to throw something, depending on the story, it's probably going to work if I kind of have a vibe of the point of the scene. And also understanding that if you take the time to break the scene down like this, our body is going to kind of remember, our body and our brain, kind of remember the point of the scene, so that if I'm in the midst of a scene and I'm practicing or rehearsing it, and I have an impulse, and I've gone through the steps with the emotion, the objective, the interpretation, most likely your body's going to sort of take you in the right place. So that's, you know, based on sort of a muscle memory philosophy. That's how I do it.
How do you rehearse your scenes at home by yourself?
It's a good question. Okay, so first of all, when you're practicing a scene by yourself, you have to sort of remember that, okay, I'm doing this scene at home, I'm rehearsing it by myself, so I'm kind of playing off of a figment of my imagination that I'm reacting to, if it's a scene partner that I sort of see in my mind's eye. So I'm practicing it and I'm kind of reacting to this imaginary thing that I see. First and foremost, you can go ahead and do that, but make sure that when you actually show up and on set, you kind of have to remind yourself, okay, now I'm going to react with a real person, because the brain and the body get sort of used to practicing alone. You don't want to get into trouble there, because you could sort of go on autopilot and start, you know, doing the scene with your scene partner, the real live person, and find yourself sort of still reacting to your own imagination rather than the real person. So that's just a side note. But the way I rehearse at home, some people will say, okay, pick a spot on the wall, and that's going to be sort of your scene partner. I'm not a fan of that. What I do is I kind of just sort of, you know, if I sort of tell myself, okay, right in front of me, let's say I'm doing a scene right here and I'm looking over here and I see my wife in the scene. So I just sort of establish that I see her in my imagination. So I'm reacting to sort of this sort of hazy vision of this woman, but I'm not really looking at a spot. It's just sort of there in front of me, and I'm reacting to it without sort of getting, you know, obsessive about, okay, what does she look like? What is she doing? And I'm kind of trusting that my brain and my body is going to give me something to react to. I think the common mistake when you're practicing at home is to sort of slip into performing it to something instead of reminding yourself to react to something. So I'm reacting to an imaginary, and again, for me, this person I'm reacting to is not necessarily going to be clear to me. It's going to be more of a hazy vision that I'm reacting.